Welcome, crypto community. Recently, FedEx joined Hedera's governing council. That wasn't small, and it definitely wasn't symbolic. It was a global logistics titan stepping directly into governance. But what really matters isn't just that FedEx joined, it's what they've been saying publicly for years about where blockchain is going and how it could reshape global trade. In a public discussion about the future of global supply chains, a FedEx executive explained how they've been exploring blockchain since 2018. Not as an experiment, not as a hype play, but as a structural upgrade to how global commerce works. What he described pointed towards something much bigger than a company solution. He was describing a shared infrastructure layer, a neutral trust foundation that sits underneath global trade itself. Not a FedEx database, not a proprietary internal tool, but a common foundation where competitors cooperate at the base and compete on top. He talked about digitizing supply chains, building standards, creating reference architecture, and working side by side with competitors like UPS to reduce friction across borders, speed up customs, establish trusted shippers, and memorialize data on chain so provenance can't be disputed. This wasn't about moving packages faster, it was about moving trust. And if global logistics begins running on shared trust infrastructure, that changes everything. But don't take my interpretation for it. Listen to what he actually said.
Conversations. Shortly after that, our CIO talked about the fact that we think for this to scale, it has to be bigger than us. What that's translated to is that we work as part of BIDA, as part of GBBC, with UPS, with others, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, in what I refer to as a co-opetition, a pro-competitive co-opetition. We think it's going to take all of us to create standards, to create reference architecture, and then we all are in business or doing things to benefit that. We think we have to get these foundational layers out there first.
If you listened closely, you heard it. He said it has to be bigger than FedEx. He said they're working with UPS. He said they're building standards. That's not proprietary software. That's shared infrastructure. And then he made it even clearer.
We are finally at the moment, literally at the moment right now in our lifetimes, where we are going to digitize those processes. But it can't be FedEx digitized, and it can't be UPS or DHL or other examples individually. We can't own that. We have to work together, thus the co-opetition reference.
He said they can't own it. Not FedEx, not UPS, not DHL. So whatever this becomes, it has to be neutral. It has to be shared. It has to function as infrastructure. And that's where the dots start connecting. Within the Hedera ecosystem, lighthouse use cases have been a recurring theme. Foundational systems built so entire industries can plug in and build on a shared base layer. If that's what a lighthouse looks like in logistics, then logically it wouldn't be built just for FedEx. It would be structured so other logistics players could connect, UPS, DHL, and others across that ecosystem. That's how infrastructure works. The more participants that connect, the stronger and more embedded the foundation becomes. And infrastructure doesn't embed through hype. It embeds through standards, coordination, and shared trust. Once it embeds, it becomes invisible, but indispensable. Now step back for a moment. FedEx sits on Hedera's governing council, a public distributed ledger architected for neutrality, multi-party coordination, high throughput, and predictable fees. So let's think asymmetrically. If a logistics lighthouse forms and it runs on Hedera, and competitors across that industry connect, then you're no longer talking about one company using a blockchain. You're talking about an entire sector embedding into it. And in crypto, adoption drives usage. Usage drives demand. Demand drives price discovery. Most tokens move with narrative cycles. Infrastructure, on the other hand, embeds for decades. So, if global trade begins anchoring to a shared trust layer, and that layer lives on Hedera, the question isn't whether HBAR is just another token. The real question becomes, what happens to the value of the network that underpins global commerce? And here's where it gets even bigger. Logistics may just be the beginning. See, Hedera isn't aiming for one lighthouse use case. The model applies to finance, healthcare, digital identity, energy, any sector where major players need shared trust without a single entity controlling it. Now imagine a network that doesn't host one lighthouse use case, but dozens, or hundreds. Entire industries anchoring to shared foundations. Each lighthouse increases usage, increases coordination, increases embedded demand. This isn't about hype cycles. It's about structural adoption. And when structural adoption takes hold, markets reprice, because eventually the conversation shifts from, is this just another token, to, is this infrastructure? Global titans don't join governance bodies randomly. They align with networks built to scale. So the real question isn't whether blockchain matters. It's which network becomes the global base layer, and which investors recognized it before the broader market did. And remember, the same executive warned that companies not operating at the edge of this technology risk becoming commoditized or potentially extinct. He wasn't talking about retail traders. He was talking about industries. Look, every industry eventually plugs into something. A shared trust layer, a neutral foundation that everything else builds on. And when that foundation quietly becomes the standard, everything above it starts to change. The applications evolve. The industries align. The world adjusts. History doesn't reward the ones who waited for confirmation.
If you're not operating at the edge of innovation or technology, you need to be prepared to be commoditized or potentially to become extinct.